Takeout is cool, but delivery gets pricey. So, like a phoenix from the ashes, indoor dining is back at Forged Eatery. I use the analogy because the food is fire. It's a new approach to farm to table. No overalls, just dope food. Try my favorites, like the mushroom stew with pine nuts and ricotta, the cornmeal fried happy oysters, and the seared duck breast. Also, ask about the chocolate chip cookie tins. Mini chocolate chip cookies with a dusting of sea salt. Simply delicious. Head on over to forgedeatery.com to check out the current menu options and make a reservation today. Forged is located at 3520 Chestnut Avenue in Hamden. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today's guest is the owner of Emma's Tea Spot, a venue that is committed to using authentic British products, local vendors, and farm and seasonal organic produce. We have Emma Canoles. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So obviously, we talked a little bit before we got started, as I put in the inverted quotes. So the proper British experience. Describe that for us, please.
The word proper in England is kind of how you use the word legit here in the US. So we're using it in a way that would suggest that it's suitable or appropriately appointed. I like to joke that the English bit is that we make you line up and then charge you an arm and a leg for a cup of tea. But the truth is that in England, it's a lot more accessible tea. And I found it really inaccessible in America. So we're just stripping away all of the hoity-toityness, the tablecloths, all the frills, but hopefully adding a ton of charm. And as you say, those local seasonal ingredients, we have a mission to reintroduce people to their food sources and seasonality. And we make people come up to the counter and order. It's a co-creation. And that's how we do it in England. And so that's what we're doing here. And that's the proper bit. That's a proper British experience.
That's fantastic. So a little bit more about the story. What brought you here to Baltimore? Like that seems like a big change. So what brought you to Baltimore?
Well, I've always traveled, and I was living in London with my ex-husband. We were running a restaurant in Covent Garden. They wanted a sister restaurant in America. They headhunted him, and they sent us over here. We saw Fells Point first. So I was like, oh, it's just like home. This will be cool. And yeah, that's it. Very simple. It was work.
So in starting out the spot, when did that start, and when did you first open your doors?
Well, we opened in 2017. Because we had the restaurant originally, I was raising the children and kind of keeping the homestead. And whenever I would talk about wanting to open my own business, my ex-husband would say, "That's nice, dear." And then after we got divorced, I met my new husband, and I was telling him the same spiel, I want to open my own business. And I expected him to pat my hand and say the same thing, but he didn't. He said, well, you better do that then. And so I was kind of put on the spot. If I'm going to talk the talk, I better walk the walk. And he said that I'm not the person he thought I was if I didn't follow through. And so the same year we got married, we originally were opening it together. And then Ben is an artisanal craftsman. He is a slate and coppersmith. So he decided to also do his own thing. But yeah, 2017, he pushed me to do it. And so here I am.
Yes, it's time to make the tea, put the kettle on, and all of that good stuff.
That's what he said. Exactly.
So as an entrepreneur, what would you say like a really good piece of advice that you've gotten that's really like stuck in your head, that's been ingrained there, that you're like, oh, you could always go back to that in driving what you're doing as a professional?
It's kind of, there's three things really, but they all kind of around the same theme. Sure. And that is just do one thing and do it well. Your product should be concentrated to a few good things and then fully expressed and evolved within those boundaries. It's the same with your daily operations. Life can get overwhelming. So if you just take one thing and do it well, then you're always chipping away at it. And then perseverance, worry will only change things for the worse, but perseverance will always change it for the better. And if you can't move forward, you have to maintain. So if you stand your ground and you wait for the way to open up, you can just align with your higher potential. And then the other thing is that if you don't take time for wellness, life will force you to take time for illness. So in order to really stay in control, you got to let go. And that every day, whether it's leaving work to come home to switch gears to look after the kids, there's never enough time. There's never enough energy. There's never enough resources. But if you allow yourself to focus on that, that's what's going to grow. So you have to just focus on the small mercies, the green lights you got on the way home, and the nanny you didn't make wait. And, you just got to focus on that and persevere.
That's good. That's definitely usable, especially during the last year and change. To enjoy those small wins and take care of yourself ultimately. So your tea spot is a very charming location. I enjoyed it, and we'll be coming back soon in one way, shape, or form. So how is your experience in being in business in Baltimore? How's the community taken to you, and how have you kind of been within the community, and how's that experience been for you?
It's actually been really positive. I'm fully aware that Baltimore has a reputation of sorts, but my experience has been one of camaraderie. The creativity here is huge. I crowdfunded twice. I was funded within days. People want you to succeed. And it's cosmopolitan. People are creative. It's street level. It's just been a really wonderfully supportive experience for me. Especially in Hamilton too. This is where I came when I did get divorced. I'm, a long way from home. I was a single mom, and I found a nice plot of land for not a lot of money with great neighbors. So it's been really positive, very supportive.
That's one of the things that I've been hearing, like, that often I think gets overshadowed, that, we just, as you touched on earlier, it's just this reputation, as opposed to it's once you get that stamp, that purple stamp, that crab shaped stamp of you're in Baltimore, what have you, you're a part of the community, and people definitely support. And that's been my experience. And I've always lived here. It's like you have to get through a few hurdles sometimes to get that support. But once you got it, it's like you've been stamped, you've approved, the ink is dry. And that's how that kind of works out.
Yeah, the architecture here is amazing. The music scene is amazing. Public television and radio is amazing. Music is amazing. Yeah. It just, all the things I think that sustain and nourish a human being, if you're willing to get your hands a bit dirty, is what Baltimore's all about. Like the underdog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go to Baltimore.
So, and we'll have a few more entrepreneurial questions to ask, but I want to ask this here. Aside from your work, speak on some of your creative interests and or talents, because you're kind of touching on some of those interests a little bit there, but speak on those a little bit more concretely there.
Well, I used to own an apothecary because, clearly I believe that we have a relationship with nature, that if we engage in it or even intentionally or mindfully consider it, it will respond back to us. And I find that really magical. So horticulture, plant nomenclature, gardening. I've just recently started martial arts, actually, for a similar reason. Just like to have discipline. I find that when your body's in motion, your brain's not in motion, and your thoughts are so potent that you just need to be really mindful about them. So oils, crystals, yoga, anything of a spiritual nature is really interesting to me. Meditation, all of those things.
I had a really, because I've always found it to be super challenging and I get frustrated. And that's part of the whole thing of when you're meditating. It's like you just keep trying. And then you might get a few moments of stillness here and there. And that's enough. But you just keep trying. That's the thing with it. And I was like, damn it, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be able to just be still. I want to do it for an hour. It's like, you're not going to do it for an hour, at least at this juncture. But I made a concerted effort to do that recently. And I was just sitting there, turned off everything, sensory deprivation, all of that. And it's just like, I'm just going to focus on just my eyes being closed and did all of that stuff. And I was having like a block creatively. And I just sat there and I meditated on it and kind of came out of it. And the first thing I looked at was this, I have a Jenga set, the tower game. And I just came up with some like little funny comedic bit just looking at it. And I was like, oh, it still works. My brain still works. The comedy's still there. Everything is still working. And I came out of that due to being able to meditate and do that kind of, for me at least, a kind of a reset of there's a bunch of muck here. Let that be where it's at. But let's get back to what you're trying to do. And one of the things I'm a big advocate of, and so I definitely was picking up what you were putting down there, is having those routines. Like, you have a practice that you're doing. So, before like doing these podcasts or before going into like the day job, there are certain things that I have to do that are going to make sure that I'm running as optimal as I can. So if it's involving me getting up and getting like coffee or tea, hint, hint, or doing just like a walk and just kind of clearing my mind, it's a good reset. So definitely incorporating those practices in what you're doing, especially during a time like this. And just, I think a lot of times humans, we're prickly. We poke each other and we don't know it sometimes. So having those resets are very important, especially when you're in business.
Yeah, I think anybody that's successful has rituals or ceremonies. A sportsman with his old sock that he's had for 25 years or whatever it might be. You have to have those things because they're your traditions. And I like the martial arts because I can move. And it's the not moving thing that I struggle with. But what I've really found useful is just not doing what I usually do, whether it's scrolling on my phone or having a glass of wine at the end of the night. Those things get put aside to practice doing something you don't ordinarily do. And so you're unhooked from your story and you're unhooked from those repetitive things that go around. And even if you're not able to still your mind, you can control your breath, and it gives you something so powerful because you're just being. You're just being at that point, and it's really rare. It's not surprising. We're terrible at that. We just don't make time for it, So yeah, it's vital for success.
Absolutely. I wrote this blog years ago when I was applying for a very, very safe office job. And they were like, oh, you're a podcaster? Oh, you do this? Because I've been podcasting for about 12 years. And it was this thing of like, give us your reel, give us your some examples of your work. And I was like, I have to scrub this because there's a lot of 4-letter words in these podcasts. But I ended up writing and doing a podcast. I did a blog and a podcast specifically for this portfolio. And I spoke on how important it was to make the ordinary extraordinary, make that like important. Like if you're just going out there, don't take these things for granted. It was essentially the crux to what I was getting at. And it went over well. I didn't get the job, but it went over well. And I always look back at that as, oh, I can, do this. And these things do matter to me. And it's like being aware of it while still having my off-color jokes.
Yeah.
So
it's the message of the day, isn't it? About being authentic and those things that are inside of you, getting them outside and overcoming the fear in order to do that and expressing yourself that way. It's, that's the most powerful thing I think you can do.
Absolutely.
Very brave.
Well, thank you. So as we talk about these rituals to kind of help us out through the day, we have to talk about some of the things that lead us to those moments of challenge and distress in distress rather. What would you say some of the maybe one or two of the greatest challenges or great challenges that you've encountered being a business owner?
It's a similar conversation. It's the programming, the paradigms, the limiting ideas, and the fear. You know, you go out into the big wide world, and the world seems so full of fear, and the body is so restrictive, and the energy is so dense, and everything's so violent, and the planet is suffocating. And how do we? It's just, you know, to constantly overcome that and know that that is programming, and know that that is limiting beliefs, and that that is just a story, and to be able to step outside of it. The same as the meditation. That's the biggest challenge on the daily basis, is to have faith in yourself, have faith in a higher power, have faith that there's like a sweet spot where you can't put all your eggs in one basket and become complacent. Oh, it'll just work out, you know, I just have faith. But then you also can't sit there and not take chances because you don't know how it's going to work out, because you're not in control. It's a co-creation. It's not something that you're in charge of. So constantly taking calculated risks without knowing how it's going to work out and not falling apart is just the biggest challenge. You know, it's more challenging than the finances or the accountants or hiring or retaining staff, because that's such a human thing to do. That has a formula, I suppose. But stepping outside of your comfort zone. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, what about aspiring or elevating to be something more than what's not broken? You know, being able to look at something and not make risky behavior, but also not stay where it's comfortable, to constantly grow and face fear and always be in a place of challenge is energetically very draining. And so I would say that's the biggest challenge for anybody, whether they're a business owner or a hard-working single mum that's doing doubles every day. It's going to be your biggest thing is to just face fear and step out of the paradigm, the programming.
Some people run into that, and I've been having these conversations with people who are in that really close circle with me, and it's just like, I see the challenges. People just think, oh, you can plug in a microphone and it's, go, you got it, do it. And there are things that are happening behind the scenes, and it combines elements of being a business owner and being an artist and trying to marry the two different things. And, I'll say once I took, some look at it as a leap of faith or what have you, but tried to make an effort to put out what I'm doing more broadly and endear myself within the community that I reside, doing interviews such as this. I wasn't doing that for the majority of this 12 years. This is something over the last couple of years, because I was like, I don't know if I can trust other people, and what if no one likes me and things like that. And I was like, it's part of it is the programming. And it's like, how can I navigate that? Like, what is my purpose here? What am I trying to do? Do I want people to listen? Do I want to be a part of the community? And it took one thing by one orange colored individual that was in a high office talking about Baltimore. I was like, oh, there's the accelerant right there. And I got really annoyed. And that was energy for change, as people in the therapy circles will say, anger is the energy for change. So I started looking at it, and it's like, all right, what can I do? Let's do what I know. I know podcasting. I know these different things. Now let's extend it. Let's try to do other things. And, as I do those things that feel like natural, calculated growth, again, going with what you were describing, it's just like the universe or whatever we all believe in is just providing for me. It's like, here's another opportunity. You're going to take that. Here's another thing. Oh, here's a sponsor now. And just these different things that inform you, I think, that you're in the right direction, and you're just taking care of yourself. You're just making sure you're able to still do it.
Yeah. My husband says, what's the best decision that you can make right now? you've got mud on your shoes, milk in your socks, you've got a parking ticket, your kid's crying, you're late for the interview. What's the best thing that you can do right now? You know, there's a sage advice about not treading on a tiger's tail. That's different to not getting down when things don't seem to be going. That's not a sign that you should go home and hide behind the couch. That's a sign that this is going to be so worth it when you get to the other side. Now, if it's dangerous, back away. But otherwise, you've just got to maintain and persevere. And there's things that people that you went to school with that were jealous or threatened or just unaware, the things they said are not the things that define you. That's not who you are. And when you're young, you believe them and you fit that mold. And that's not the reality of the situation. You know who you are. You know the best thing that you can do in this moment. And with that, you can move forward. And you have to have faith. Like, you have to have trust and you have to have faith. That if you do that, like a bird singing out, the universe is going to sing back. It's an echo. It's a reflection. It's science. You put good out there, you're going to get good back. And that's not some hooky dooky kooky stuff that people say. It's something you can really believe in and invest in.
I agree. My old therapist used to throw this one out there, this old chestnut. It's like, yeah, what's the next right thing? Right. Whatever it is. And it's like, you're the one that's determining it. And in a world where you fall for the whole paradigm, it's a mix. It's like you're in control, but you're not in control. And it's like, whatever you're choosing to do, that's on you. So go ahead and do it and, take what comes with it. And it makes you feel a little more calm because it's like, all right, yeah, I can do this. Or maybe I should do this. It allows you to make the decision, but it's already been decided for you ultimately. Yeah. It's just which path and how long it's going to take you to get there.
Yeah, there's a universal truth running through most things. And the more you can strip back the veils, the more you can align yourself to it. And as long as you're doing your best, then it's going to work out,
I definitely did not see this conversation going in this metaphysical direction, but
he's great too, though.
Well, I mean, it's just me sitting there listening to Alan Watts and like, yeah, so then Buddhism or whatever. So I have a few more questions before we wrap up here. So let's see. That's a goofy question. So, what do you hope your guests take away from Emma's Tea Spot? What do you want people to take away when they have enjoyed your offerings?
Yeah. So even if people don't really know our mission yet, because I'm still struggling to find my voice and the right way to put it out there, and people just think it's tablecloths and hats and white gloves, even if they don't know that, on a subconscious level, I think having that seasonality and the mission is something that's nurturing. It's very difficult. To go back a little bit earlier, it's very difficult to not cut corners. Restaurant margins are so thin. I don't serve alcohol. There's not a lot of foot traffic. It's very hard to not cut corners. But my principles dictate that even though this isn't necessarily a business model that has that most people do, because I'm really interested in nurturing people and reconnecting them to their food source and something sustainable, that somehow will gain traction and that will somehow support me. So when people come here, I want them to know that they are fully loved, nourished. They can trust the food. They can trust the environment. Tea, it transcends time, space, religion, identity, race. It is a place where everybody is welcome. Whether you're a construction worker or a church lady, you're all welcome. We are all here taking a minute out of our day in a safe place, just having one of the last ceremonies left in the world. That cup of tea and a chat and some sympathy, or just some peace, just a moment to be able to, like that meditation, step outside. I want to curate an environment that has a little bit of magic and gives you some, pip in your step.
Absolutely.
So that you can just face that day.
I mean, my partner and I, we enjoy gloves and top hats and small dainty cups of tea. So, I mean, you've also sold the ticket there. She likes to get dressed up. I just go in there with a Carhartt shirt on and, construction boots. That's just what I do. But, she's into frilly dresses and stuff like that. So, you get all kinds. So I have two last questions here. And one of these we may have already talked about a little bit with creative interests and talents, but I'll still ask it because this has a weird spin on it. I'm into the weird, I'm into the odd, I'm into the unique. What would you say your most unusual talent is?
So, we've been talking about people speaking their truth. And so my weirdest talent, I suppose, don't really ever put this out there, but I'm also an energy worker. And I have channeled messages in the past from, it's taken me a while to figure out exactly what it was, but I get given messages about the tools that I can use and the messages that I can give to support other people. So different tools from source or higher vibrational beings or from the highest part of myself. So that's a talent that I've kept very hush-hush my whole life, but I've started to feel that, if I was to die with that information or that message inside of me, that would be worse than the fear that I would face or the ridicule that I would face, not being honest about it. So I sense resonance and I receive messages and hopefully I can use it to anchor frequencies and raise vibrations for everybody.
I mean, that I've had, I think season 2 maybe, or it was either season 2 or season 1. I had one energy worker on, and we were kind of having this conversation. I was getting this vibe because I have a broad array of interests, and I was like, yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's like, you don't think this is crazy? Like, no, say more. I feel like I'm learning here. That's the direction I go with it, which I think is going to make this next question even more interesting. So if you had the opportunity, and this is the last question I have. So if you had the opportunity, which creative person, live or otherwise, would you want to have tea with, and why?
I thought about this for a while, and originally I wanted to hang out with the hip hop group, the Hieroglyphics, because positivity being, change is so powerful. And hip hop was always about street level information, but also about how to overcome it in unity. And I really thought that was, where I wanted to go with that. But then I realized that I'm a long way from home. And I didn't see my grandparents before they died. Oh. And honestly, I think I'd rather sit with one of my grandmothers and just have a cup of tea and hold their hands, because they're both creative in so many ways, whether it was foraging or homeopathy or remedies. I think that actually is the unsung hero in our story. And I think as an adult, I would like to revisit that.
That's good right there. I like that. And thank you for sharing that. So at this juncture, I'm pretty much done with my questions, but I like to invite all of my guests to have the opportunity to shamelessly, and I mean, just make a travesty of this, shamelessly plug anything that you want to plug, your website, your social media, all of that stuff.
We are doing parties, birthday parties, intimate gatherings, private gatherings at Emma's Tea Spot. We do brick boxes. We do quarantine care packages. We send things through the mail. We customize and bespoke absolutely everything. We do set menus, vegan food, gluten-free food. We are friendly with every identity possible, and you should go to www.emmasteaspot.com or email me at emma@emmasteaspot.com for any of your tea party needs.
That's fantastic. And that was the most precise and quaint version of a plug that I've ever heard. So points to you on that. So that's pretty much it for me. I'll do my sign off and that'll be it. So for Emma Canoles, I am Rob Lee saying that there is art in and around Baltimore and tea. There's tea. Go get some tea, folks. Don't play yourself. Come on, pull up. And this has been Getting to the Truth in This Art. So see you guys next time.